The town of Crofton and overall Cowichan Valley was dealt a heavy blow today. The Crofton mill is permanently shutting down.
The combination of pine beetle, the need to protect old growth, forest fire, and low prices is incredibly challenging.
Right now, 350 families in British Columbia are waking up to a nightmare. A mill that has been the beating heart of their community for nearly 7 decades just announced it is shutting down permanently. And the timing could not be worse. This happened days before Christmas. I am coming to you live with this developing story because what is happening in Crofton, British Columbia, is not just a local tragedy. It is a warning sign for communities across North America. When a 67-year-old institution can vanish with barely a whisper, no one is safe. Let me take you inside this story. The town of Crofton sits in the Cowichan Valley, and for as long as anyone can remember, one thing has defined this place: the mill. Those columns of steam rising into the sky have been a constant presence since 1957. Generations of families have built their lives around this pulp operation. Fathers worked there, sons followed. It was not just a job, it was identity. Then came Tuesday. Domar, the company that owns the facility, released a statement. The pulp operation is closing permanently. Just like that. Nearly 7 decades of work, families, stability, and routine erased in a single paragraph. The mayor called it devastating and gut-wrenching. I do not think he was exaggerating, but here's what makes this story even more troubling. Keep watching because the ripple effects are about to hit everyone. This is not just about 350 direct jobs. The mill contributes nearly $7 million annually in property taxes. That money keeps basic services running. Roads, fire protection, municipal staff. Without it, the town is scrambling to figure out how it will even function. And the damage spreads far beyond the mill gates. Truck drivers are losing their routes. Local suppliers are losing contracts. The diner down the street is losing its daily crowd. The hardware store is losing regulars. None of that shows up in official job numbers, but everyone in that community feels it. One local business owner put it bluntly. The mill represents 40 to 50% of his business. Without it, he does not know how he will survive. Now here is the part that really gets to me. Some people will quietly suggest these workers somehow failed, that they did not adapt, that they did not try hard enough. I completely reject that narrative. Domar itself stated that employees spent 18 months cutting costs and making extraordinary gains. They tightened operations, they adjusted, they sacrificed. They did exactly what companies always demand from their workforce. It still was not enough. That tells me this was never about effort. This was about a system that left them behind. And that brings us to the real question. Why did this happen? Stay with me, because the answer involves forces much bigger than one mill. The company points to 2 main factors. Global pulp prices have collapsed, and fiber, the raw material these mills need, has become too expensive to access in British Columbia. When you cannot get affordable timber, productivity becomes meaningless. But wait, what about tariffs? That is all we hear about these days. American tariffs on Canadian lumber are hovering around 35%. Surely that must be the culprit. Here is the surprising part. Industry experts and even the company itself say tariffs are not the primary issue for this closure. The problem runs deeper. It is about domestic policy, regulatory uncertainty, and a forestry sector that has been slowly bleeding for years. Coastal mills across British Columbia are being strangled by lack of affordable timber. Permits move slowly, rules shift constantly. Investment dries up when companies cannot predict what comes next. The provincial government admits there are not many permits in the pipeline right now. That is not because the industry is healthy. It is because prices are crushed and confidence is gone. If you are finding this coverage valuable, take a second to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps us bring you more stories like this one. Now let us continue. What scares me most is how normalized this has become. A mill closes, and the response feels almost rehearsed. Sympathy statement, acknowledgement of challenges, promise to explore options, then everyone moves on. But here is the pattern you need to see. Crofton is not alone. In just 1 year, British Columbia lost approximately 11,700 natural resource jobs. That is a 21% decline. 1 out of every 5 jobs in the sector, gone. If this were happening in any other industry, there would be emergency meetings and press conferences. Here, it barely makes a headline. Take 100 Mile House. Different town, same script. West Fraser shut down a lumber mill there. 165 jobs vanished. No grand rescue. No miracle pivot. Just another community told to adjust. And Crofton itself has been hit before. Catalyst Paper laid off hundreds years ago. This latest closure is not some shocking twist. It is the final chapter in a long, quiet decline. Now, the political battle begins. The BC Conservatives are calling for heads to roll, framing this as a breaking point caused by regulatory paralysis. Province-wide protests are erupting, demanding forestry reform. On the other side, the government points to global markets and forces beyond their control. Both sides talk past each other while workers get stuck in the middle like abandoned chess pieces. What haunts me is the silence from Ottawa. Prime Minister Mark Carney has faced criticism for seemingly brushing off forestry concerns. Critics point to comments where he described the sector as not a burning issue. Tell that to the towns where the economy is actively smoldering. Unions are not asking for the moon. They point to a $50 million worker transition fund tucked inside a larger federal package. That is barely a rounding error in government spending. Yet the response has been quiet. In politics, quiet is rarely neutral. It feels like indifference. The mill officially stops operations on December 15th. Some workers are being kept until February, a few until April. On paper, that sounds like a soft landing. It is not. In reality, it creates false hope. People keep thinking maybe something will change. Maybe a buyer shows up. Maybe there is a miracle. But the end date is locked. Everyone knows it. They just do not want to say it out loud. Domar says it will maintain the site for environmental compliance and explore future options. I have heard that language before. Maintenance keeps the land compliant. It does not keep communities alive. Once workers leave, once families move away, towns rarely bounce back the way politicians promise. So what does all this mean for you, wherever you are watching from? Here is the takeaway. If a mill that survived since 1957 can disappear this quietly, no resource town in North America is truly safe. This is not just about pulp and paper. It is about how easily working communities get written off when they stop being convenient. Forestry used to anchor entire regions. Now it is treated as expendable, almost inconvenient. One independent sawmill owner in the Cowichan Valley said he has gone through the ups and downs of this industry many times. But this, he said, is by far the most serious. It could be the most devastating they have ever seen. His mill employs 50 people and sells wood chips to Crofton every day. Now he is scrambling to find new customers because neither of the other nearby mills can use what he produces. This is how collapse works. It does not announce itself with sirens. It creeps in quietly and empties places slowly. The people of Crofton are not asking for handouts. They are asking for a fair chance in a system that seems designed to forget them. What happens next remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. This story is far from over. Crofton is not the end. It is the signal that something deeper in the economic foundation is cracking. I will continue following this story closely as it develops. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss any updates. This is breaking news coverage you will not find anywhere else. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, communities like Crofton are counting on people to pay attention. The forest minister acknowledged that the forestry industry has been boom and bust his entire life. To me, that sounds like the normalization of failure. When leaders talk about stabilization and transformation instead of timelines or guarantees, it feels hollow. Sympathy does not replace policy. The workers of Crofton held up their end of the bargain. The system did not hold up its end. That is the story here. That is what we cannot afford to ignore. Because if we do, the next town could be yours. This is a reality check for all of us.